Chapter 12. And the next night we had beans and biscuits again. I liked Charlie more and more with the passing of each day. He had to demonstrate I had to make the toothbrush three more times before I could make my own. But finally I got the hang of it. He talked to me too. He made the long days on the trail seem to pass more easily. As we rode, he showed me things like the tracks of different animals that came to the river. He pointed out the round leaves nests where squirrels living in the trees. He showed me flowers along the bank of the river and brought bluebonnets that lined the hillside. More than once he called me Tanita instead of Amanda. Each time he would laugh and apologize and tell me how much I reminded him of his daughter. As for me, I had to be careful not to call Charlie grandmother. He so reminded me of her. He was someone I could confide in. He was open and honest, and neither of us had to hide or guard our feelings when we talked. Except for the incident with the alligator, each day on the trail was less eventful than the day before. When we left Kerrville, David had told us to expect to be out for at least a week. At the end of 2 weeks, there was still no sign of buffalo. I was beginning to doubt that there really were any. Mother and I had become quite accustomed to life on the trail. Each evening when we stopped, we took a change of clothes with us to the river. We got our Levi's wet, then rolled them in the sand. We would twist them up and pound them again on a rock. Mother said she had watched the native women doing the wash that way when she and father had travelled on safari in Africa. We were a bit more gentle with our silk drawers and cotton blouse. When we were finished with our washing, we would bathe. If the water was slow and the river wide, we could use the small white towel that Charlie had given us to take a sponge bath. We would use Charlie's Dutch oven to pour water over us and get the soap off. This irritated Charlie a little because, especially if he was planning to make biscuits or cornbread and had to wait for us to bring his pot back. When we camped near a fast-running white water or a place where the bottom was rocky and shallow, one of us would stand and watch while the other swam and bathed. When we got back to camp, we would hang our clothes in the tree to dry, so we would twist them in the bed rolls the next morning. In the evening, we would help Charlie build the fire and do some of the cooking. We didn't really help all that much though. Charlie took great pride in his meals of beans and biscuits, so mostly Mother and I just stayed out of his way. The last thing every night, Charlie would fill his Dutch oven with water. He'd build the fire up enough so it would boil. In the morning, we would fill our canteens with the clean water for drinking. Once during the 2 weeks, Les brought in a couple of rabbits that he had shot. They were good and a welcome break from beans. David brought in a small deer. It had sort of a wild taste that I didn't much care for. Charlie did a good job of cooking it. It lasted about 3 days, and on the third evening, Charlie took his knife and chopped what was left into tiny, tiny pieces. Then he squeezed the pieces together to size a little smaller than his pancakes. He'll cook them in the open fire. I decided that was the way I liked venison best. We didn't travel on the 2 Sundays that we spent on the trail. I made camp and stayed in one spot all day to rest. Charlie showed me how to catch fish from the river. We talked and laughed, but never caught any big enough to bring back to camp and eat. By the second Sunday, Mother had finished reading the 2 books she had sneaked into a bedroll. She busied herself with writing on the notepad that she had brought along. It's not really a story, she had told me once when I asked about it. Just making some notes so I can do an article about adventures for the newspaper. Or she glanced off wistfully. Who knows, I might even try to write a book about her someday. At any rate, without a book to read and with very little paper left to write on, Mother spent more time with Charlie and me. I liked that. Mostly what we spent our time doing was riding. All day long we rode and rode. We didn't cover that much ground either. We probably averaged 15 miles of riding a day, zigzagging back and forth, only to move 3 to 5 miles up the river. Nothing exciting ever happened, and it seemed that we were no closer to finding buffalo than we had been on the day we left San Francisco. Even Mother, who was full of enthusiasm and excitement, was beginning to have her doubts. One night we crawled into our bedrolls. She gazed up the stars and sighed. Perhaps we're too late. Perhaps there was no more buffalo left. Monday of the 3rd week started out damp and humid. Usually the mornings were a bit cool. The air was fresh and clean. Today was hot from the very moment I opened my eyes. My clothes were wet and sticky, although we'd bathed the night before. My face felt gritty and dirty. I wiggled out of the bedroll and stretched. Even the Sears Roebuck catalogue felt damp. When I got back from the bushes, Charlie was busy at the fire with a stick. He scooted red hot coals close to the Dutch oven. Why is it so hot and sticky? I asked. Charlie's dark eye flickered up to the sky. He seemed troubled. Storm brewing, I reckon. He stirred the coals again. But best get your mum up and get your stuff rolled. We might have to do a heap of travelling today. We packed and ate breakfast. Charlie kept glancing at the sky all the time. All the time he loaded the pack horse, there wasn't a cloud anywhere. Les rode up to the river. David crossed the river. That was very narrow and rode for some bluff towards the west. We worked our way up to the gondola, just as we had for the past 2 weeks, with the exception of the sticky hot air that seemed thick enough to chew and the droplets of water that popped from the tall branches of the bowl cypress tree. Everything was the same, just like always. One day seemed to blend right into the next. My 16th birthday was less than 2 weeks away. For a short time I'd forgotten about my friends and Philip and all the fun things that there were to do back home. But today, with the heat and the quiet, my yearning to be home pounded into my heart with every step of Sarge's hooves. If I were home right now, I would be planning a big party. Mother would be buying me a new formal gown, one of voile or lace with a scallop yoke and pearl buttons in the bank. The servants would be decorating the entire house. We would have been dancing at the party, and there would be cake and pastries of all sorts. I so miss cakes and pies. I even miss vegetables, although I have never cared much for them until this trip, where they were so scarce. At home I'd be with my friends and would be laughing a lot, and Philip might even try to steal a kiss. Here nothing exciting ever happened. My birthday would come and go without notice. If things kept on like this, I'd probably waste away from the boredom before my birthday ever got here. Nothing exciting ever happened. Chapter 13. A little before noon, Les came riding towards us. He was kind of slumped in his saddle. His shoulders sagged and he seemed tired and disgusted. When he noticed us, he gave us a little jerk. He sat up straight and held his shoulders back, reached the headwater of the river. When he said that, his shoulders sagged again, just like David described. Big, flat area, mostly rock, bunch of little springs seeping up and branching into the channel. He took a deep breath and sighed. Spent nearly 3 hours circling plenty of deer and wild pig sign. Had a shot at wild boar. Figured a little fatback to chew on or add to your beans might help the flavour a bit. Missed him though. Anyhow, there's a lot of game, but not a buffalo track anywhere, any place. Don't know where those darn things are, but it's for sure they ain't in the gondola. My horse stomped his feet and stepped to the side. I pulled back on his reins, trying to make him hold still. Quit that, Sarge, I whispered. Charlie looked over his shoulder in the direction that David had ridden. Well, he frowned, curling the tip of his moustache between his thumb and finger. Don't rightly know what to do. Sarge stomped again and slipped to the side. I yanked on the reins a little harder this time. Being behind Charlie, the pack horse, and Mother, I found it was a little hard to hear. With my horse stomping and wiggling around, it was almost impossible. No sense going on the end of the river if the buffalo ain't there, Charlie continued. If David found signs, we'll have to double back. He frowned and twirled the end of his moustache again. But if he hasn't found anything yet, then... I didn't hear the rest of what Charlie said. Sarge reared, but just a little. It was more of a bounce on his front hooves. I yanked the reins hard and slapped him on the neck. Suddenly there was this strange, loud buzzing sound. It came from the ground beside us, but before I even had time to glance down to see what it was, my horse squealed and reared again. This time his front came clear off the road, clear off the ground. His mane was in my face. I leapt forward to keep from tumbling backwards off the rump. I grabbed for the horn, but he leapt sideways. I felt myself slipping. Sarge made 2 giant leaps on his hind legs. My right foot lost the stirrup as he jumped to the left. Desperately, I dug my other heel into his side, trying to hold on with that leg. He hit the ground running, frantic. I grabbed for the horn. I touched it, but for only a second before it slipped from my grasp. I fell. It took only an instant to hit the ground, but it seemed like an eternity as I watched the brown dirt rushing closer and closer. My right shoulder stung where I landed. Then inside my head I heard a loud thump as my right ear bounced against the dirt. My whole right side ached. I moaned from the pain and rolled to my stomach, trying to get my weight off where it hurts. The loud buzzing came close to my ears again. It was so close it sounded like a dull roar. I blinked, trying to make my eyes focus and my head quick spinning. Then I saw it. The snake was not 2 feet from me. His thick, massive body was caught into tight rolls. His head was so near I could see the horn-like scales that stuck up above his yellow eyes like the horns of the devil himself. A black forked tongue flicked in and out of his mouth. His tail, covered with little bulb-like things, were raised behind him. That's where the sound was coming from. The tail that shook and rattled so fast it seemed to buzz. Rattler! Charlie's scream was loud and shrill. I thought At first it was Mother's voice, but it was Charlie. In the blink of an eye, he and his horse appeared above me. They were so close I was afraid his pinto might step on my head. I started to roll out of the way. Don't move, he screamed. It was too late. I shoved my arm against the ground beside me. I could see the snake's mouth open. Two long fangs flashed inside the pink mouth. Above me I saw Charlie's hand reach for the knife at his side. My eye started to the snake. He struck. His ugly head moves towards me as fast as lightning streaking across the sky. I blinked. Chapter 14. In the half of an instant it took for my eyes to snap shut, then flash open. It was all over. In mid-strike, Charlie's knife had caught the rattlesnake square in the middle of the back, less than a foot from my cheek. The angry head ceased to freeze for a second in midair, then violently, viciously, he began whipping from side to side. Long glistening fangs he bit time and time again the silver blade that painfully pinned him to the ground. Venomous fangs found the handle of Charlie's knife. He clamped onto it. Clear, brownish drops of poison formed on the tips of those frightening fangs and rolled down the handle of the knife. Then there was a brown, crusty brute right in front of my stomach. I was being pushed, then rolled out of the way. When I finally quit rolling, I sat up. I held my stomach and grasped for air. Charlie stood with his back to me almost as quickly as he had thrown his knife. He jumped off his horse and leapt towards me and the rattlesnake. The snake's angry jaws released their grip on the knife's handle, and he began slashing back and forth again. Charlie stepped out of the way. The terrible sharp fangs missed his boot by barely an inch. Suddenly Les was beside him. With the butt of his rifle, he pinned the rattler's head to the ground. Sure that the snake couldn't move, Charlie yanked the knife from its back and cut its head off. The body flipped and slithered. The angry jaw kept snapping. My stomach still ached when Charlie had kicked me. My heart pounded in my ears. I tried to get to my feet. I wanted to run from the slithering body that flipped and flopped on the ground and the vicious jaws that kept snapping open and shut. Every one of my muscles trembled and quivered. I couldn't move. Charlie slipped his knife back into the scabbard and moved towards me, but Mother reached me first. I felt her hands under my arm, lifting me up. "You're all right," her voice quivered. "It didn't bite you, did it?" The only answer I could manage was a shake of my head. It took both Mother and Charlie to get me on my feet. My legs felt like jelly. I couldn't stop shaking. They were so close to Nita. Charlie gave a little laugh. "You okay, baby? It's over." He tried to make his voice sound light and cheery, but the way his words crackled and trembled belied his little laugh. The sweat rolled from his forehead. Drops of perspiration collected on the tips of his moustache. Mother wrapped her arms around me. She was shaking too. Charlie hugged both of us, and we all three stood there for a long, long time. "I'm all right," I assured them finally. Now I could breathe again. I had stopped shaking enough for my legs to hold me. "Really, I'm okay." Mother kept inspecting my cheek and shoulder just to make sure one of the snake fangs hadn't touched me. Les went after my horse, and Charlie apologized time and again for kicking me in the stomach. I thought it was silly of him to be upset about such a thing. After all, he had just saved my life. It had been a terrifying experience. But after watching Mother and Charlie for a time, I figured they were more scared than I was. I didn't have time to get scared. Everything happened so quickly. I didn't even think about what might have happened, not until it was all over. Once I leaned to the side so I could see around Charlie, the snake's angry mouth kept opening and closing much slower than before. His body kept wiggling and twitching too. "It's dead?" Charlie glanced over his shoulder. "It's dead," I frowned. "Then why does it keep wiggling and biting?" Charlie shrugged. "Rattlesnake for you. Things are so mean and dumb. They keep trying to bite you even after they're dead and gone." He found a big log a few feet away. After kicking it over a couple of times to make sure nothing was under it, Charlie sat Mother and me down. He knelt in front of us and kept watching me to make sure I wasn't hurt. Les came back with my horse. How far Sarge had run, I didn't know. Both he and Les' horses were lathered up and breathing hard. Excuse me. "David's coming in," Les said. "Seen him top the ridge yonder, riding hard. Don't know what's going on, but there must be something up." Charlie patted me on the knee and got me to his feet. Before he got my horse from Les, he went to look once more at the rattlesnake. The body had finally quit wriggling. It lay motionless, belly up. "Rain," Charlie announced as he handed me the reins. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I frowned, not understanding. With a jerk of his head, he motioned back to the snake. "It's gonna rain." He helped me to my horse. "Snake's dying on its back. Sure sign that it's gonna rain." "Other signs too. All day's been muggy and hot. Seen turtles and them fuzzy tarantulas crossing the trail way back. He patted up my leg again and apologized once more for kicking me. You've had a rough morning, Tanita. He smiled sheepishly. I mean, Amanda. Dang near got snake bit. Dumb Mexican kicked you in the stomach. Now you're fixing to probably end up wet and cold. A smile leading down from Sarge's back. I kissed him on the forehead. Thank you for saving me, Charlie. His forehead turned a bright red. He smiled back. There was the sound of brush popping and crackling. Get mounted. Storm's coming. He could hear David calling to us long before we could see him through the thick trees. He pulled his horse up. Yankee slid to a stop not far from where Mother still sat shaking on the log. The horse was lathered, white frost streaking down his neck and chest. His nostrils were flared with his breathing. We gotta go. David was breathing as hard as his horse. Storm's coming. It's a bad one too. Found an abandoned soddy about 2 miles over the ridge there. Doubt that we've got time to make it, but we got to try. Les brought Mother's horse and handed her the reins. Mother looked up at David. Amanda was almost struck by a rattlesnake. Sarge threw her and ran off. She's all right, but if we hadn't been for Charlie's speed and skill, please, Miss Guthridge, David cut her off. Please get on your horse. Timber rattler, Charlie said. He went back to where the snake lay and cut the snake rattles off his tail with his knife, biggest one I think I've ever seen. Dave's eyes scrunched tight. Charlie! His voice was a stern bark. Charlie spun and trotted to his horse, and while Mother mounted hers. I almost got killed, I snapped. A huge rattlesnake almost bit me, and you couldn't care less. I can't believe that you... I saw the snake when I rode up. David snapped right back. I also saw that Charlie had taken care of him, and that everybody was okay. He stood up on his stirrups and leaned forward, glaring at me right in the eye. You can tell me your little story later. Right now, we've got to get moving. He spun his horse and started off. We're going to be riding hard. He caught over his shoulder. Since you've fallen off today, you best hold on to the saddle horn. My eyes bored into the back of his skull. If I could have gotten my hands on him at that instant, I would have snatched every bit of his thick brown hair right on the top of his head. Oh, Sam, I don't want to scream. Of all the insensitive, rude, unconcerned. Not only was he too busy to hear about me almost getting killed by a rattlesnake, he had also insulted me with getting thrown from my horse. That was it. I stood up on my stirrups and leaned towards him. What's wrong? Big bad Indian, brave ahead of a little rain. To my dismay, he totally ignored me. For an instant, I thought I saw the muscles under his shirt tense. Only he didn't turn back towards me or slow his horse. He simply rode on. Charlie and the back poor horse fell in behind them. Then Mother, then me. Les brought up the rear. He moved on off at a trot, but once we crossed the river, David spurred Yankee to a gallop. I couldn't stand David. What had happened to me was terrifying. It was important. David didn't care a thing for me. His only concern was the rain from a little Texas storm. I learned later that in a little Texas thunderstorm, there was more to worry about than getting wet. Thank you for listening.